Thank you, Peter. This is a pleasure to introduce our speaker for this morning. The renowned professor of construction management at Arizona State University, Bill Badger, used to talk about the construction industry as get work, do work, keep score. And probably the most important part of it is keeping score. And you want to really rack up the score and add to your profits, and that's really key. One of the ways to do that is through reducing your losses. And this morning's program, we're going to talk about loss prevention, the heart of a risk management program. With us today is Michael Overholt. He's Vice President for Safety at the American Contractors Insurance Group. This is just not any kind of insurance mechanism. This is a special insurance, sort of a risk pool. I'm not going to go out on a limb and try and explain how this all works together, but I'm sure Michael will. It's an innovative group. It was formed, he'll tell you when it was formed and how folks get into it. It's not for the general public. But Michael Overholt has been with this American Contractors Insurance Group for 23 years. Prior to that, he's held several safety and risk management positions in large EPC companies, and he has his degree in safety from Purdue University. With that, I would like to call upon Michael Overholt. Michael?
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, appreciate it. Well, good morning, everybody. Everybody hear me in the back? Great. So yesterday morning, one of the hotel staff basically gave a safety brief. I'd like to do that again this morning real quick. So we do know there's 2 AEDs in the hotel just in case we need those. And the other thing is emergency evacuation. So like he mentioned yesterday, just a little refresher, if we need to evacuate this room for any reason, go out these exit doors to the right outside the hotel. And for those of you in the back, to the left, exit the doors to the back and then back down to the right. So it's a real pleasure to be here this morning. David, thank you for that great introduction. I do kind of like to work the floor a little bit. So I'm going to task the video guys to a certain degree. And the program today is the heart of your safety program and preventing all injuries. So just by a show of hands, and we're going to get into some risk management techniques and really kind of go through what that spectrum is to keep your employees safe on your project sites, your warehousing operations, your supply houses, your manufacturing plants. But by a show of hands, how many, today's Thursday, how many injuries did you have on your project sites yesterday on Wednesday? So you called the office, hey, how are we performing? How are construction projects coming along? So hands up in the air if you did not have any injuries on your project sites yesterday. Okay, great. So a few hands didn't go up in the air. So how many of the contractors in the room and others in the room have gone the entire week without having any injuries on your project sites? This week, Monday through this week? Awesome. So the title of the presentation is Preventing All Injuries, Eliminating All Injuries on Our Project Sites. Is that possible? Is that feasible in the industry that we work in? Because we work in a very dangerous industry. Sure we can. You guys just raise your hands. You told me you've been the entire week without having any injuries on your project sites. How many have gone the entire year so far, 2018? Raise your hands nice and high. 200, and I heard some days, 240 days, no injuries, right? So now we've gone what? January and February, no injuries. So does the title of the presentation as kind of we walk through what the sequence is to keep your employees safe on your projects. And we're going to talk about a few other things. We're going to intertwine a little general liability and property damage and talk a little insurance. But is that possible? Can you prevent all injuries every single day on every single one of your projects? Or your warehousing operations, your manufacturing plants, as well as your fleet? operations, right? That's highly dangerous. How many fatalities incur across our nation's highways every single day, or every single year? Anybody got a guess? 45,000. On average, 45,000 across the highways. Deaths that occur out of operating a vehicle. Okay, so your fleet operations play a real key role in your risk management program. Okay, so in order that I am articulating and communicating to you this morning, and I want to make sure to kind of get the message across, I've got about an hour. I stand between you and golf as well, so keep me on task. There's only a worse spot. That's being in an afternoon session. I'm standing between you and the bar. Okay, so I think I'm in a little worse spot because everybody's anxious to get on the golf course as well. Okay, so in order that I'm clearly communicating, I want everybody to raise their hand as high as you can. Everybody in the room, raise your hand as high as you can. Okay, did everybody understand the message I just sent? Now raise your hand higher. Wait a minute. Let's back up. The first thing I said was raise your hand as high as you can. So you really had to stop. So I'm not communicating appropriately, so you're not getting the safety message. But that's a key in our operations, right? A key in our operations is, are we artfully articulating the safety message to our employees? And more importantly, are they receiving it? Are our crews receiving the message? Demonstrations is key. Hands-on delivery is key. Okay, I'm going to provide a lecture probably about the next 45 minutes. So I'm going to lose about half the room in 10 minutes. I'm going to lose half of everybody in this room based on training research, right? Because you guys are going to be checking email, you're going to be on your laptops, which is fine. What I'd like to do is just keep in mind through the next 45 minutes or so, just take 1, 2, maybe 3 key takeaways from this presentation. Okay, one or 2, maybe 3. Jot those down, put them in your notes, drop them into your iPhone, so you can take those and communicate those back to your teams after this conference. By the way, I've learned more yesterday afternoon, guys, about EIFS. I'm glad I'm kind of not in your business. Whew, good night. Scientific, highly technical. No wonder I got into the safety profession. A lot of just highly qualified engineers and based on the program yesterday. So as David mentioned, I work for ACIG. ACIG is American Contractors Insurance Group. We are a group captive insurance company. So we write workers' comp, general liability, and auto liability. Okay, so workers' comp for our employees. Okay, workers' comp injuries, getting injured in course and scope of employment. General liability, woo, man, did I see some general liability yesterday. Man, I was kind of depressed. I'm like, good night, look at all these fires these guys are showing yesterday. I was like, woo, a lot of fires. That comes into play in your permanent property coverage, which, by the way, thankfully, we do not write. Okay, we write ongoing construction operations, general liability coverage. Any property damage arising from defective work, okay, on any construction project that we write, we're on the hook for, okay? And post-project completion out to various state statute of repose. Anybody from Maryland in here? I looked at the registration list. Maryland, okay. Do you know what the statute of repose is in Maryland? 20 years. So if I'm a commercial builder and I'm building a condo in the state of Maryland as a general contractor, or if I'm a trade partner, notice I'm going to use that term, trade partner. I'm not going to use subcontractor, I'm going to use trade partner. If I'm a trade partner on that project, I'm on the hook after that project completion for the next 20 years on any construction defect allegation coming from the owner or the developer. Is that a long time? Do you guys remember what you did last month in February? February 1st? Where were you guys February 1st? I don't remember where I was last week, right? So when you get the lawsuit from the plaintiff attorney and he comes in and says, now you've got multiple construction defect allegations on your EIFS system because your wall system is not performing, that's where we come into play, okay? Now we got to step up and defend that case. And what are those plaintiffs' attorneys good at? When am I going to get the lawsuit as a general contractor? I'm going to get the lawsuit 19 years, 11 months, and 30 days before the statute of repose expires on that project. I had forgotten how I built that project 20 years ago. Okay, so those are the line of coverages that we write. This is our mission statement. We've got a typical project of one of our, you'll hear me use the term members. They're contractors. We use the term members within the group captive. So this is our mission. Save lives, prevent injuries, and reduce the overall cost of risk for contractors. Does that kind of resonate with everybody in the room? So for those of you, and I talked to Buck. Buck, nice to meet you this morning. Okay, you guys are looking at specialty insurance carriers and providers and agents and brokers who understand your business. Okay, we understand your business because we've got, matter of fact, a lot of your members are working for our GCs across the country. But does your workers' comp insurance carrier have this as a mission statement? Remember, these guys are a for-profit organization. They want to make money, right? They collect premium dollar. If you don't have a loss with your workers' comp insurance carrier, do you see any of that money coming back to you? In the form of retros or dividends, because what? You have a good, safe process. You take care of your employees. Okay? So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. The other thing is, how many key takeaways did I mention earlier? 3? 1, 2, or 3 key takeaways. Did you know in a lot of different states, your workers' comp carrier is required by state insurance statute to provide you loss control and safety services? Not all states, but many states. So for those of you that are working in multiple states, and I'll send the list to David so you can kind of take a look at that, at no additional premium charge. So they have safety professionals, loss control experts on staff that if you, the general contractor, or any employer for that matter, okay, construction industry or any type of industry, manufacturing industry, fleet industry, transportation, you call the workers' comp carrier, they're obligated by law to provide you certain level of safety services with no premium charge. One key takeaway. I actually gave that to you guys. I've given you one key takeaway. Call your insurance company next week, okay? Because they're obligated to support you in that effort, and that's what we do. Just a few little financial ticks here. The group captive, all of our contractors are privately held. There's no foreign ownership, no public ownership. Okay, we started in business, as David mentioned, 1981. So I can't do the math in my head. What's 19 plus 18? See, I'm telling you, I'm not technically qualified to talk about E's from yesterday. Okay, that's Purdue math, 19 plus 18. Okay, so we'll celebrate 37 years in May of this year. So we've been in business since 1981. We were born out of a feasibility study through the Associated General Contractors. And that feasibility study, which David was a part of initially through his days back in the 70s with AGC, is why are we subject to the traditional insurance market and the swings of insurance cost? Workers' comp, statutory based, everybody else is going to pay the same premium based on your payroll class codes by state when you put your estimates together, you put your bids together, okay? When you're submitting and putting your proposals in for projects. General liability, auto liability, whole different ballgame, okay? So what we were seeing with contractors were the fluctuations in their insurance cost. And we couldn't get stability in pricing from our insurance carriers. You guys can resonate with that message, right? Based on the specialty type of contractors, distributors, manufacturers that you guys do and the work that you perform, right? So the insurance industry is highly complicated, highly complicated. So what we try to do is look at your past losses and try to figure out how you performed previously to do what? Project your pricing going forward. So we try our best to try to influence that model to give the contractor stability in pricing. Everybody needs stability. Okay, so when you're putting your bids in for projects, what is the percentage of the overall bid for your insurance piece? In our markets, we see anywhere from 3 to 5%. You don't want to leave any money on the table on your insurance program. It's a profit center for you guys. View it as a profit center. And a part of that profit center over here is the foundation for your safety program. If you don't perform safely on your projects, what happens? Your insurance cost goes up. Your premium costs go up. So what does that do to you when you try to recoup your cost when you're putting your bids together? You gotta put that back into your proposals, right? You need to recoup that. You want the owner to pay for that. So view that as a profit center within your shop. Each contractor has to have a minimum $20 million in net worth. The 76 million man hours is a little old number. We'll self-perform 80 million man hours this year across all of our 40 contractors. That's 40,000 employees working in almost every single state across the country. So I try to raise my hand every day, no injuries on my projects across the captive every single day. Okay, we have responsibility for 40,000 self-perform man hours, or 40,000 employees, 80 million self-perform man hours over a year's period per calendar year. And that doesn't include our specialty and our trade contractors. That's about another 120,000 employees, okay? It's about 150,000 employees on any given project. So we're very similar to EIMA. We're very similar to the membership that you guys operate. I really love the theme for the conference, One Industry Team. That's how the group captive is set up. We got tired of the traditional insurance market. So we formed our own group captive, and each one of these contractors have an equity percentage ownership within the captive. And man, do we take risk. You want to know why our contractors take risk? Why would you guys take risk on a construction project? You guys are in a risky business, right? Why do you want to take risk? You want to get paid for your risk. Okay, so you guys are taking on certain risk out on your project sites. You want to get paid for that risk. We're contractors, right? We're contractors. Inherently, we're taking risk, right? I'm taking risk getting on the highway when I get in my vehicle every day, because I don't want to be the one of 46,000 folks across the highways that get killed in vehicle accidents. We'll do about $2.5 billion in payroll. We'll put in place about $30 billion worth of work. So overall, we make up about 3 to 4% of the overall construction volume, which is a pretty good little percentage for privately held, mostly tightly held, family-run contractors. Our average contractor puts in place about $700 million a year. 3 primary industry groups: heavy highway, you guys don't care about those; specialty industrial contractors, specialty trades, so that's one of our primary industry groups; and general contractors, general builders, okay, who you guys work for. So any questions kind of on the captive piece? I want to just give a brief overview of that, because really the guts of the program and the meat of the program is to give the members today some key takeaways. Yes, sir? Absolutely.
My other question is, if we over-exaggerate, because we're not sure exactly how many hours we're going to have, we don't quite hit that mark, we never get the money back. But if we estimate the number, we get hit with an audit. What is our legal right as a contractor? We expect the contractor or one of those their insurance. And/or what is our better way of underestimate?
Well, in the insurance industry, the insurance carrier has a right to go through a premium audit and audit your payrolls by class, by state. We don't do that. We've got it in our policies. Of course, we're set up a little bit differently on kind of our retro program when we're paying those premiums back. I can have an offline discussion with you after the presentation, because it's a lot more detail on kind of OSIPs versus CSIPs. We see a lot of competing OSIPs with our general contractors. We've been performing CSIPs since about 2004, so 14, 15 years. It's been highly profitable. The loss ratio on these CSIP projects are less than 10%, because GC, that contractor in charge of that CSIP, has control of that project site versus an OSIP, which is the owner's insurance carrier, right? And you, as a GC or a prime or specialty trades, a lot of the members in the room, you're signatory to that OSIP because you're mandated to enroll, right? So when you enroll into that OSIP, you have no idea what your coverages are. That's the bigger piece. The bigger piece is, are you protected from your insurance policy, typically on the general liability, because you don't know who the carrier is, which is the owner's carrier. Right. Right, right. But I can have an offline discussion with you about that because it's a lot more detail. Yeah, great question though. Great question, by the way. So here are some of our key success factors. We're singular focused on the construction industry. There's over 3,000 group captives. We're the only group captive that is homogeneous that writes construction only, okay? So our expertise is in construction, not insurance, construction, insurance, okay? My background is construction, okay, not insurance. So we understand how these buildings go together, even though I learned a lot yesterday. I'm not going to go sign up for the professional engineering exam in the state of Texas where I'm from, that's for sure. Thought leadership, industry experience, AGC. We're also members of the ABC, Associated Builders and Contractors, and we're also members of the ASA, American Subcontractors Association. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So here are the basics that I want to talk about. Really 3 key buckets on your takeaways from this morning. Making a difference. Sending your employees home safely every day. You guys just told me this morning that you didn't have any injuries on your projects this week, right? And safety equals profit, as David mentioned during his kickoff introduction this morning. Does everybody know what an EMR rate is, experience modification rate? Okay, that's how the insurance companies generate their premium. It's a lagging indicator. It's not really a proactive safety indicator because it looks 3 years behind. But losses are a key part. The main driver is payroll, okay? So from a simplification purposes, it's the ratio of payroll versus losses. So you're in control of what? Which kind of gets back to his question earlier on making sure you're classifying your trades appropriately, right? That's where the insurance companies get a little awry, right? When you tell them that you're going to build a 2-story steel structure building, and you're going 8 stories, but the class code for your premium is 2 stories and below, and now I'm not collecting enough premium. So then I got to come back to you and claw back some money. Okay, so just kind of be aware of that when you're working with your insurance carrier on classifying your payrolls and your class codes appropriately, right? So EMR is a big driver behind that. Does everybody know what the average EMR rate is in the construction industry? 1.0, right? So when I start running your premium numbers and you're going to pay me $1 million a year in workers' comp premium, I'm going to take it times that EMR factor, which for the average contractor is a 1. So you're going to what? You're going to pay me $1 million. I can do that Purdue math. It's $1 million times 1, right? Now, if your safety program is really good and your EMR is decreased because what? Because your safety systems and your safety management processes across your projects are very robust. Your EMR is going to drop. Now your insurance premium is going to drop accordingly based on that EMR benchmark. So if your EMR is a 0.4, your competitor's paying me $1 million, you're only paying me $400,000. Much easier to recoup $40,000 or $400,000 in comp premiums than it is $1 million in comp premiums. You're not going to have too many owners paying you back on that insurance piece. So we want to give you some key tips on how you can turn that into a profit. So I mentioned earlier about the burning buildings yesterday. I was like, man, I don't have any burning buildings in my slide deck. I don't have stuff that exciting. But what I did is when David and I were talking, I basically went to the EIMA website and I just uploaded a few photos of what you guys do. So what does this collage of photos from the EIMA members speak to you? What does this show you on this slide? It's exactly what Peter talked about this morning. Right, man, take pride in what you're building. a sense of pride. You can kind of step back and say, man, we build some cool, cool buildings. Okay, specialty trade partner, prime contractor. We're working with the GCs and the construction managers. So now when I look at this, remember this is from a tilted construction safety professional perspective, okay? When I look at this on this 10-12 pitch in these dormers, how am I going to tie those guys off when they're building the building, right? How am I going to scaffold that building safely, right? To do what? To do this. I got to send all my employees home safely every day, right? So I'm not going to talk to you about compliance. I'm not going to talk to you about OSHA. I'm not going to talk to you about governmental agencies. I'm not going to talk to you about the IRS. I'm not going to talk to you about antitrust guidelines on when you're going to jail. I'm going to talk about how do you engage your employees. It's a culture of caring. All right, so if you set the expectation at your companies within your manufacturing operations, in your delivery operations, in your fork truck operations, in your construction projects, and they know that you are treating your employees with dignity and respect, you don't have to tell them what an OSHA regulation is. They're going to go work for you and they're going to perform safe. You're going to send them home safely. A few more photos. God, these are just awesome. I just love what you guys do. Of course, I see it every day. Like David mentioned, I've been with ACIG for 23 years. Resort here. I mean, this is the Broadmoor, right? Colorado Springs. Now, again, I'm going to figure out how you scaffold that, right, when you're putting in your eaves system, right, to protect your employees. But these are all projects that you can step back, take pride in knowing that you had a major part in the aesthetics. And most importantly, another thing that I learned yesterday is how's that building performing, right? How's that building performing? We talked about at lunch and dinner, you know, about buildings have to breathe. So then what I did is I went back into a few of the websites and said, you know what? Everybody's going to take pride in the building. I mean, that's why we're in the industry that we're in. That's why we have the passion, right, for such a great industry, because it's an industry that gives back so much to us. I was an old hacker growing up with my dad. My dad was a 45-year superintendent. I worked for him during high school summers. I've been in the construction industry since I was a little tyke. And this is what I really thought about, is like, I want to go out and I want to build cool stuff, right? I want to be like my dad, right? I want to build neat stuff. So then, you know, fast forward 15, 20 years, it's also about this. It's also about the people that are building the projects, right, on our behalf. So you forget about these folks after the building is done, right? So what do you guys see in some of these photos? I specifically pulled out a few of these photos. What's important about this prefabrication operation? Why do you think I pulled this photo out? We talked about it at breakfast this morning a little bit. You're in a controlled environment, right? They're not subject to the outdoor elements. Okay, I can roll those prefab wall panels off the line and go install them, either modularly or prefab out on the project site. So what did I just do on your project? I just eliminated some of your risk. So now you can recoup that low fee that you're trying to collect from your owners or your GCs. Yeah, make sure your GCs are paying your progress payments on time, by the way. Okay, which is another key issue, which turns into a safety issue. Right? So I'm in a controlled environment here. What's the thing that you notice here and the thing you notice here? No high-vis vests and no hard hats on. Safety glasses. Right? So I don't have to put these folks and my employees in personal protective equipment because there's no dropping, falling, or striking hazards that can injure my employees. Right? I'm sending these folks home safely to their families every single day. This guy's working at a scissor lift. I just pulled this photo out from Glenn Mark's website. And what do you see about this photo? What sticks out for you here? One industry team, that's your theme for this week. Company unity, they all got high-vis vests on, they all got hard hats on, right? They're taking a group photo. I feel a part of your team. So not only are you paying me to do my job, you're paying me to do my job safely when I'm building your projects. Just a few more photos. So it's really about the craftsman building your projects. The owner's going to be happy because the owner gets the building that he wants, right? It's going to perform in the fashion that he wants his building to perform. I want to know who the owner is because he's got the nice Humvee here. I don't think he's driving the Subaru over here on the end, but that's okay, right? So what do you pick out from a safety standpoint here on his fleet of vehicles? Hopefully he's maintaining his vehicles, right? They're roadworthy. So when I put an employee inside a vehicle to go travel on my behalf, I'm giving him the equipment, the resources, the assets, and the transportation to operate safely. Okay? I'm sending them home to their families. Here's an employee, you know, he's pausing for the camera here, smiling, one of our craftsmen. What do you see here? High-vis vests, hard hats. What do you see here? Group photos. All our employees want is to be appreciated. If you train them on OSHA regulations, which 1926 construction OSHA regulations are about this thick. Who has read page to page, front to back, 1926 construction OSHA regulations? Not one hand goes up in the air. I haven't done it, and I'm a construction safety professional. Okay? I know the majority of those, so I can give you guys feedback from a compliance standpoint on how to run your job safely from an OSHA perspective. That's why the manual's there. The manual's there for us to go back and what? Reference it. Okay? Engage your employees, talk to them, ask them about their families. You don't have to worry about the other stuff down the pike. So building excellence really equals safety excellence. So how did you do on your last job? I always ask that question. So for the contractors in the room or for the manufacturing plants in the room, did you guys meet your quota on the manufacturing line? So what's important to you for the contractors in the room on how you build your projects? Spit it out. What's important to you? Meeting schedule? Making your margin? Right? What was that again? Getting paid on time? Those GCs are notorious for nickel and diming us, right? It's like Intel. We've got one of our GCs that have worked for Intel for the last 15 years. They look at every single penny on the invoice. Every single penny that we invoice them. Same thing with Walmart. Our contractors will not build Walmart stores. There's no fee in it, no matter how safe they are. You want to know why? Because you got a sophisticated owner who wants to pound the contractor. Right? This is about trade partnership. Right? This is about relationships. So one of the key takeaways, continuous journey towards improvement. I'm not going to be able to hand everybody a safety manual and say, go be safe. Because if you train all your employees in this 3-inch, 3-ring binder on how to be safe on a safety manual, you're going to get safety performance. Doesn't work that way. Okay? Sorry to bring bad news to you this morning, but it doesn't work that way. It is a continuous improvement journey, just like the codes that you guys are looking at with EVES on how you improve the building codes in the areas that you work. You guys know how these things go together, right? You guys are in the best position to understand how those wall systems go together. So can everybody agree with me on this? Priorities change over time. Okay, did your priorities change this morning knowing that the tea time start is 1 o'clock this morning? Mine did, because I know I got to get done by 10:45. By the way, what time is it? I don't have a watch on. Oh my gosh, I got to speed up, guys. But anyway, priorities change. Design your safety process to make it scalable. David gave me a great stat, which I was not aware of when we were talking on the phone. 80% of our buildings are 25,000 square feet or less that we build across the country. So if it's a 25,000 square foot building or a 2.5 million square foot building, scale your safety systems to the type of project. Here are some of the challenges, project complexities. Talked about that this morning. We've got international architects that we're dealing with now. We've got architects up in Minnesota that are designing snow loads for commercial buildings in South Texas. Go with me on this, guys. I mean, come on, right? Owner, subcontractor language, that's a risk management risk, right? Who works in Florida? Raise a hands. Contractors working in Florida. Do you know that the state allows broad form indemnity to get pushed down on you guys from the GCs? Still allowed, broad form indemnity on your standard subcontract agreement. Go back, talk to your risk management department or the owners of your firms to make sure you understand that the GC is pushing his risk down to you as a trade partner. So if he is responsible for negligence on one of your projects and injures one of your employees, guess what? You're holding the boat on it, okay? It's a risk management issue and an emerging risk issue. Now, if they put it in their standard subcontract agreement that you guys are signing, okay, and there's got to be a business consideration in the state of Florida and there's got to be a monetary amount associated with that. Typically, in the standard subcontract agreements, we just see $1. Okay, look at these contract terms. Okay, it's risky to sign onerous standard subcontract agreements coming downstream from the GC. Okay, we've seen it time in and time out. Lumber just went up 3% yesterday. We'll see what the administration does and all this tariff stuff with aluminum and steel. China's the #1 steel producer in the world. Brazil's #2. United States is #5 or #6. So we'll see how this pans out on the tariff piece. You're going to talk about this next, so I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot, but we've got the perfect storm going on. We've got tens of thousands of construction workers retiring every month across the country. Okay, it's the baby boomers that are retiring and leaving the industry. And we can't what? We can't attract, hire, and retain good, qualified people in our industry. Okay, and I know you guys are going to talk. And I love the video yesterday morning. I mean, that's what all you guys are about. That was awesome. So what that does in turn is you're making the EAVS industry attractive to the next generation of builders that are coming up. We had a conversation at our annual meeting, the ACIG annual meeting last month in February. High schools are stripping out all the shop classes and all the trade classes in high schools. What are today's kids doing in high school? They're flying indoor drones, right? They're playing Xbox, right? They're gaming, they're messaging, they're texting. They're all over social media. So how do we leverage that as an industry to attract that talent into our industry? Right? When we were growing up, we took 4 years of shop in high school. Right? We took woodworking and metalworking and drafting and agriculture and small engine repair. How many kids in high school can take a lawnmower engine out, repair it, and put it back together again? Not too many. Okay, so that's one of the problems within the construction industry. I know you guys got a topic on that, so we'll speed through. Man, you guys got a lot of challenges. Fee pressure, schedule pressures, trade stacking. All this is safety performance. Okay, it's downstream safety performance. So we do an incident investigation. I personally have conducted thousands of incident investigations across project sites. Okay, across almost every state across the country. And I still look young. Wait a minute, back up. Nope, I've got gray hair. Okay, so what we do is we don't get to the root cause, right? So we have a mason working off of a scaffold. Okay, he gets injured, we do an incident investigation. Well, we didn't train him enough, so what do? Send him back through some more training. Don't blame the employee on your incident investigations. Okay, the reason why he was injured, hypothetically, is this. Okay, so if you're a union contractor and you call the hall and you're trying to get tuck pointers and masons, there's nobody in the union to get. They're gone, right? They're dried up because we're so busy. Okay, so what do we have to do? Well, now we got to work long hours during the week. We got to work weekends. We got to work overtime. And the owner wants it faster. We lost our float in the schedule. We've got rain events. Can't work outside. Talked about that at lunch yesterday. You know, how do you get these guys, back inside so you don't lose time on your schedule. So now you got schedule pressures. All these pressures, that equates to safety performance or lack of safety performance. And then we figure out, yeah, well, man, I've been calling the hall for the last month. I can't get any masons out here. Okay, well, now you got to work your 3 crew of masons overtime every single day and through the weekend. That has to go into your incident investigation. Okay, because if you don't get to the root cause and we injure one of our employees and we blame him for not working safe, you're going to run him back through OSHA training, and then you're going to have the same incident 6 months later. And then we're scratching our head going, man, I just trained Joe. I ran Joe back through the competent persons on scaffolding, and another guy gets injured up on the scaffolding. Okay? So if you're trying to achieve a goal that you've never achieved before, you have to do something different than you've ever done before. Don't send the guy back through training. Figure out where the cause is on that incident. Talked about this. We don't call our project partners subcontractors. Call them trade partners. Okay? Our GCs and the captive hire your members here to perform highly technical, skilled work on my project sites. Okay? We got contractors in the captive who are prime and specialty contractors that work or that are in the captive that will not work for unsafe general contractors. That is another risk that you guys are inheriting on your project sites before you even mobilize, before you even get to your project site. How many work for unsafe GCs and construction managers on your project sites? Okay, they're not providing you a safe and healthy work environment. They're not providing you access. They're not providing you laydown area to store your materials. All right, they're kicking you in the teeth every single day, and they're not treating you very well. Okay, so in some markets, typically it's Southern California, and they're both union and non-union markets across the country, we will not work for certain major general contractors because they don't walk the talk and provide a safe work environment for me. Okay, that's a risk that we take on. And these are the guys that you know that are national general contractors across the country. So let's talk about symptoms of system thinking. These are all misconceptions. These are all myths. Unsafe acts. Controlling the worker is the essence of safety. Go out and talk to Joe. Ask him why he screwed up. Send him back through training, and that's how we're going to make him safe. Compliance equals safety. Talked a little bit about this earlier. Okay, I'm not going to improve the safety performance on your construction projects by giving you more OSHA training. When was OSHA first drafted? When did OSHA come into law? 1970. Absolutely, signed into law by Richard Nixon, 1971. How many people, and you can show your age in here, how many people worked on a construction project in 1969? Raise your hand nice and high. Holy cow, that's awesome. You guys are all young in here. So the point is, what did you do before OSHA? Right? Or what did we do as an industry before OSHA? We know how to build our projects safe. That's like the government telling us how to run our business. I love the AGC article by the bridge builder in the mid-1970s. The title of AGC Constructor Magazine. All I wanted to do is build the damn bridge. And he's got 300 regulations that he has to abide by to build a construction project. Okay? So OSHA was enacted in 1971. When was the fall protection standard enacted within OSHA? This is a good question. 1994. Now, if I don't see more hands go up in the air on you guys working on construction projects in 1994, then I'm really standing between you and the golf course. Okay? So we were late to the game, right? It took us 23 years to enact a fall protection standard. Okay, so I'll give you an East Coast example and a West Coast example. What was the first construction project that used safety nets? Think West Coast. Woo, awesome. Golden Gate Bridge. Why did the bridge engineer, when we were building the Golden Gate Bridge in the 1930s, want safety nets underneath the bridge? Sharks. It's the salt in the bay. I'm glad I talked to Eric last night. I'm glad there's only little alligators out here in the lagoons and not big alligators, okay? Right? So what happened is we can save what? Materials, steel, small tools, and equipment that fly off the bridge. Let's put a netting system. Not a safety net. Let's put a netting system underneath the bridge. And then when the first iron worker flew off the side of the bridge, the netting system caught the iron worker, then what? We're going to call this a safety net system because we just saved a life. How many people were killed on the Golden Gate Bridge during construction? 11. 10 in one occurrence. Scaffold collapse. Scaffold collapse, went through the netting system, went down to the bay, killed all 10 iron workers. How many lives were saved based on the Golden Gate netting system, safety net? 19. 19 iron workers flew off the side of the bridge and were saved. They went home safely to their families. Here's the East Coast example. Downtown high-rise, Chrysler Building, other New York City. High-rise buildings, when were those built? 1930s. Remember OSHA, I can do the math, 1930, 1970, 40 years. Okay, we didn't have governmental agencies telling us how to run our business safely. The people in this room, you guys can articulate safety to your crews on how to get home to their families safely. Okay, so how did a structural steel erector and a commercial general builder building the Chrysler building put a bid in to that owner to build his high-rise buildings? Here's the rule of thumb, 2 rule of thumbs, as unbelievable as it sounds. And this is how we run safety in the construction industry. 1 death every other floor. Or 1 death every $1 million in scope. So if you're building a 30-story high-rise building in the 1930s in New York City, how many people are you going to kill? 15. I know it's going to happen because there wasn't fall protection back then, so let's put those deaths in the bid. One of my favorite quotes, Mickey Mantle, it's unbelievable how much you don't know about the game you've been playing in your entire life. It's unbelievable how much that I learned about the construction industry in one afternoon yesterday. It's unbelievable how much you can start learning on the safety side. So we're going to power through these. Scaffolding safety, the little things, supported scaffolds, ladder access, mud sills, scaffold, cross bracing, handrails, mid-rows, toe boards. Those all get moved constantly throughout the day. I can go on any construction project across the country and issue thousands of scaffold violations. Empower your employees. Talk to them. Shake their hands. Engage with them. Ask about their families. They'll build that scaffold safely for you if you know that you care about them. If you care about your employees like you care about your family, they're going to build that scaffold safely. So Dave and I talked. We want to talk a little bit about material storage. Is anybody familiar with the Lean Construction Institute? LCI. They got some really cool programs on 2-second lean, efficiency, collaboration. Which project site would you guys like to work on? This one? Or would you like to work on this construction project if you're an employee? Housekeeping is key, okay? Slips and trips, falls, nothing hits the deck. Which construction project would you like to work on? This one or this one? Right, so as drywallers, we measure and cut, throw it into a scrap pile. Who's got to go back and clean this up? We talked a little bit yesterday about LEED buildings, United States Green Building Council, trying to get our certification points. Here's a big one to contemplate, vegetative roofs. So in order to get your certification in a part of sustainability on your Green Building Council checklist to get those certification points, the owner wants a vegetated roof. Who installs landscape beds? Landscape contractors, right? Where are landscape contractors located? They're located on the ground, right? Now you're going to tell the same landscape contractor to go 10 stories up and put a vegetative roof on top of that building. He has no idea what a full body harness is, folks. I'm just telling you. So when we look at these new regulations and new rules, we really need to look at the safety implications. Scissor lift safety, this is huge. I got a few points on here. This really struck me when I did the research for this presentation, 26 workers in scissor lifts die each year on average in the construction industry, right? So look at that grid and look at that area where you guys are operating scissor lifts. Portable mixture safety, pinch and nip points, do not wear loose. I mean, these are the simple things that can turn into a major claim that can affect one of your employees' lives and their families for the rest of his or her life. Okay? GFCI protection, always check your extension cords. Okay, assured grounding, another little OSHA thing, right? Electrical shock. Okay, it only takes 2 seconds to make sure any piece of energized equipment, whether pneumatic, hydraulic, or electrical, is shut down and tagged out. Okay, lockout, tag out. Employee parking, I kind of put this in here, another hazard for our employees, because all our sites that we build on have what? A ton of laydown area and a ton of space, and we got all kinds of room to put our equipment and park our vehicles and put our materials, right? So in a lot of cases, our employees have to park across the street, right? Across the street from our project sites. And our employees get injured what? Walking to the job or going back to the employee parking lot. And this is a good one. I pulled this off the internet. I'm pretty good at that. Just going on the internet here. Here's a lady walking through the job with her dog. That's a general liability risk. You want to know how many third-party public claims that we've paid? Okay, so this lady slipped and tripped on our project site, and she filed a claim against us. She incurred a bodily injury claim. Okay, I had to pay that out of my GL policy. So look at those key things. I'm going to leave you with 2 quick things. Man, as an industry, we just cannot get our arms and our minds around fall protection. So as an industry, we just haven't figured this out. We don't need OSHA telling us how to do our business. There are so many highly qualified people in this room that we can figure this out. How many fall deaths on average every single year in the construction industry? How many people as an industry do we kill because of falls? I got some stats up here, the fall one's not up here. This is total. Do you guys see the trending's going in the wrong direction here? This is how many people in the construction industry died, 14, 15, and 16. Are those big numbers to everybody in the room? This is 991 too many fatals on our projects in the construction industry. So OSHA actually has a really, really cool website, fall prevention campaign, plan, provide, and train for your employees. Plan for a safe work environment. Engineer out the hazard, substitution. It's called the hierarchy of controls. I'm not sure if Lorraine is in the room, but Lorraine made a good comment yesterday during her presentation. Lorraine said, I'm going to wait when all the facts come in from the Grenfell fire. Okay, says I can't make an informed decision on what the contributing causes and the root cause, there's Lorraine, on the Grenfell fire, right? So we got to wait for all that information to come in from the investigation before we can do what? Before we can figure out how we move forward in the design process, okay, in keeping our employees safe. So I'm putting it in the safety perspective, not necessarily the building fire perspective, okay? So that is called what? Remember this term, cognitive bias. So I'm going to have a cognitive bias when that employee falls off the scaffold or falls off the bridge deck or falls off the ladder. Man, you know, I changed Jim last week and I put him through safety orientation and he wasn't using the ladder correctly. And I'm driving out to the job because Jim fell off the ladder and I'm doing an incident investigation. Cognitive bias. Do a full-blown investigation before you put in place your recommendations to keep your employees safe on future projects. Here are the key areas where our trades are falling from. Lifts, scaffolds, roofs, elevated decks, and ladders. Ladders is a big issue. Okay, so he's going to tee this video up from the back, and then we're going to get wrapped up. There's no audio to this. It's going to take about 6 or 7 seconds to get teed up, and we're going to talk about warehousing safety. So what caused the shelving collapse? You can't answer that question because you don't have all the facts, right? Can't answer that question. I don't know what caused it, right? I know what the contributing causes are just based on the video, okay? So get all the information in. Now, right off the cuff is we didn't lay out the other areas in and around those shelving units appropriately, and now we're telling our employee, the fork truck operator, to drive around stuff that shouldn't be there in the first place. Okay, last slide, just a few things around fork trucks and load securement, fork truck safety. There was just one last week, okay, that occurred when an employee was going down a ramp, not one of our contractors. Struck by and back over, this is huge. Drive up your ramps. Common sense, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know on this slide, right? Blind spots, horseplay. So we actually had one within our contractor community. It was a manufacturing operation. They manufacture agricultural plastic pipe for irrigation, and they're running 24/7, 365. We had a young man, 21 years old, operating a fork truck, propane-driven inside. The speed on that fork truck was 13 miles an hour, and there was a little horseplay involved, and we had some skid marks involved. Fork truck tipped over, landed on him. Luckily, he wasn't killed. Could have very easily been killed. But he had to get his right leg from the knee down amputated. 21 years old. Do you think that's going to impact the rest of his life? Absolutely it is. So anyway, some of the key points, just 1, 2, 3 things. Engage your employees. Create that culture of caring within your project sites, and that's going to go a long way. Rely on the experts from a governmental agency standpoint on safety and compliance and OSHA and that sort of thing. And I think, am I running on time? Any time for questions? Sure. So, all right. So that picture was taken 15 years ago. So just to let you know that. But I'm open to any questions. I'm actually going to try playing golf this afternoon. So I'll be around the balance of the day. I fly out tomorrow morning. As I mentioned earlier, we've been in business since 1981. We've got over 18,000 white papers, documents, checklists, safety templates on any type of construction project imaginable based on how long we've been in business. It's all loaded out. It's member specific on our SharePoint platform, but if you want to give me your business card, if you're interested in any emerging risk areas, ACIG is not on the bleeding edge. We don't like to bleed, but we think from a thought leadership perspective, we're on the leading edge on a lot of these things. How many of you have seen a robotic bricklayer? Right? They're making them right now, aren't they? So when we're in these trade schools and we're trying to get apprentices and journeymen into the mason trades, not only they're going to have to know how to lay brick, they're going to have to know what? What happens when the robot breaks down? All right? These things can build 8-foot brick walls. So when your robot breaks down, we need to start training our future employees within the construction industry on how to fix the robot. Right? Autonomous vehicles. How many autonomous vehicles are in your communities right now? You think those are safe? No driver, driverless. They've been around for 10 years, right? They're here. Okay? Caterpillar has been in the mining business for 10 years. Right? They got all their big mining equipment with no operators. Every one of those companies can raise their hand and say, I didn't injure any employees. Now that comes with a push and a tug, right? Because we're in the pride business on training and educating our craftsmen to take pride in the projects that we build. So there's a disadvantage to that. Okay, there's an autonomous skid steer loader right now that is set up with an RFID system and a geo-grid pattern for struck bys. So when we do an incident investigation on a backover claim, the first question that we ask during the incident investigation when someone gets run over by a skid steer loader or a fork truck or a backhoe, what's the first question that people ask? Was the backup alarm working on the piece of equipment? That's the first thing we ask, right? And when we got 30 pieces of equipment on our project site, I can't hear any backup alarm. It's white noise to me. Can't hear anything. So anyway, that's kind of the wave of the future. But I'm open for any quick questions because I know you got a couple more presenters, and I'm around the balance of the day. So thank you for your time, and hopefully you learned a few little safety takeaways.